Hi Nestle. Alright, so here is your past life spread. So what we're going to do is look at where you are, what you do with the majority of your time, an important day with the relationships and feelings involved, another important day, the death and lesson learned. And we'll get hints of time throughout. Usually, actually, we're going to put this away for now. I'll tell you why in a second. So all I'm going to do is relay to you the images and impressions that I'm getting, and your job is going to be to try to make connections wherever you can based on what's coming up here in your current life, and I'll try to help however I can too, okay? Alright, so let's start. Where we're going here is the Atlantis Lemuria card. So this card represents either Atlantis or Lemuria, or sometimes it represents even like other legendary places or lost places or ancient places. Sometimes this can indicate non-Earth places, but when I was actually shuffling, I was getting a feeling we were coming through Atlantis this time around. So when this card came out, it was kind of a validation for me, which is really nice. So we're going to Atlantis. So here is the Atlantis versus Lemuria, and what it is this has a more like what's it called, like a more masculine energy or more forward energy, more kind of like a stronger energy in that way. This is more peaceful, more harmonious energy, more passive energy. And so I feel like we're being drawn to Atlantis like right away, no question about it. And it feels like we're looking at what they're showing me immediately was kind of this very like what we would consider futuristic-y, kind of high-tech-ish looking structure or place, and they showed it for me from the inside, and this place felt like a fortress of some kind, where there was kind of like, at first it felt like a place of business or like a place where things are going on that would be someone's like business or life's work. And then as I started laying out cards, it felt more like a home as well. So I feel like where we're going here is a place that is home and is also considered like the place of business. However, I feel like what we're looking at is the aspect we're looking at that's we're looking at a female aspect, but almost like it feels like there's masculine energy like interlaced in this aspect, because there's something about you taking over the family business, or you also not just taking over the family business but also kind of keeping secrets for the family, or there's something having to do with family loyalty, and I feel like the person that you are doing this for would be someone that it feels like it would be like your father, like this is his life's work, or he's somebody in the industry and he does his work at home and he has a family, so you're part of his family, and so naturally you know what he's working on, this or that, but there's things that shouldn't be known publicly. And so I feel like this life we're looking at is someone who was kind of made to keep secrets or learn how to like basically not talk about certain things, or learn how to talk out of certain things or around certain things. So like certain connections you could be making already could be, one, simply, have you ever been drawn to Atlantis? Have you ever heard of Atlantis and been drawn to the concept or the feeling of it or the word, or that kind of thing? And as well, other connections you can make, which, by the way, if you have not been drawn to Atlantis, that's okay. What you should probably do is go ahead and Google it and look at some depictions of it and read about it and see how you feel about that and see if you're triggered in any way, because we're looking for connections. So other connections that could be made could be the family thing. Are you someone who has found that you chose a family that is very close, or expects certain things from everybody in regards to how to participate in the family or how to be part of the family, if that makes sense? Another thing, oh wow, you hear that? That is a loud plane. Jeez. Another thing would be just like, to further the family thing, do you find that you are the person that keeps secrets? Do people come to you with their business and want to talk it out with you? Are you, you know, like basically in a way it's like, are you kind of like the therapist of your friends in that sense? Or have you ever been drawn to therapy or to a kind of profession where you are a secret keeper, confidentiality? That can be law, it can be anything where there's a confidentiality agreement. If you find that you're drawn to that kind of thing, that could be a direct connection. An opposite connection you can make, because you can make direct and opposite connections. So an opposite connection would be the opposite of a secret keeper. It would be, do you find that you can't keep secrets, or you hate secrets, or you don't like to keep people in the dark or to be kept in the dark? You know, are those things that bother you? So if those are particular things that bother you, it can be a connection as well, just opposite, because you already experienced being a secret keeper and someone who has to be super loyal to the family. So your soul might want to have come back into this life to be someone who is either one, carries that on in the direct connection, or the opposite connection where you've chosen a family that they're not close, and there's you know, loyalty is not really part of the deal, and you see what I'm saying? So you could be making certain connections when it comes to the family, being a secret keeper, family loyalty, like, you know, is blood thicker than water kind of thing, like they expect you to choose them over everything, including your own self. Basically, do you find that you compromise yourself, compromise your own values for your families or for your loved ones, if that makes sense? Do you find yourself in those positions? If not, that's great. That would be an opposite connection. If you do, that would be a connection, direct connection to what's going on here, because it does feel like there's, again, it has to do with your family and loyalty and learning when to shut your mouth kind of thing. So let's go to the next card, and keep making connections where you can. Also, there is something I do want to mention about the aesthetic of this place. So this home, there's a lot of blues and whites and like surfaces that are not, it feels like it's, again, like I said, futuristic-y. So I guess what I would also make a connection with if I were you is, how do you like to surround yourself in your home? Are you someone that likes modern furniture? Or do you like the opposite, which would be, you know, like more of a cozy, warm, woodsy, or colorful, or do you know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. Because the home we're looking at here seems very sterile and very, it's not ugly though. I mean, it's like its own, it has beauty to it, but there's not a lot of warmth. It feels cold. And I feel like the family too, everything we're looking at has a bit of coldness to it. Like lack of affection in that way, or lack of warmth, especially, you know, in the aesthetic as well, what the home looks like. So are you someone in this life that seeks out warmth and affection and genuine love and openness, you know, that kind of thing? Do you yearn for it? Do you seek it out? Is that important to you? Or is that the opposite? You know, do you find that you were born into a family, or find yourself in situations or partnerships or relationships where there is a lack of the connection or lack of warmth, and that's just part of your life, you see? So it's like a continuing theme. Or again, the opposite, where you're surrounded by warmth, affection, love, all that kind of stuff, because you already had the sterile kind of theme here. So in your current life, you'd be opposite, just warmth, affection, love, all that kind of stuff. So keep that in mind as well. So the card here for what you did with your majority of your time, even though I know I said the family was very important, this is the protector and guardian card. And I guess that actually goes with it. It feels like it's going right along with what we're talking about as far as protector of secrets, guardian of the family. It feels like we are looking at a family that is kind of well-to-do in this area. I don't know how Atlantis was like set up, you know, as far as the different economic classes, but it feels like you're well off, you're taken care of, your family also has a nice reputation, they're known. There's something about like it is about like your father being known for whatever, like his genius. It feels like his genius. So there is a feeling of expectation for you to be as good as he is, or as you know, like intelligent, or contribute as much as he has in his life kind of thing. So you feel a lot of pressure. So if you feel like there's a lot of pressure in your life put on you, either by your family, anyone else, or yourself, that would be a connection as well, because this person felt an incredible amount of pressure, not only to, be the good, it feels like the good daughter, the good family member, but also to follow in the footsteps or bring something forward into the community that would be just as profound as her father, like that kind of thing. So you might experience, if in this life, direct connections, if you find that you're experiencing any kind of competitiveness in your life, if you feel very competitive with people, if you feel like you have to be the best, if you're really hard on yourself, if you feel like you have to meet standards either put up by your family, or you find that you've actually created your own set of standards that are really high, if anyone's ever told you have high standards, those would be direct connections as well. Protection and guardian card could also indicate somebody, like based on what I'm feeling here, you may have issues in your current life as far as being closed off, or maybe even worried about opening up to people, or you take a long time to open up to people. If that's the case, it would be a direct connection. Then again, with this kind of what's going on here, you could have chosen to come in with an opposite connection in your current life, where you just want everyone to know who you are, and you're very open, and you're not closed off, and you know what I mean? Because your soul wants to experience different things and collect different lessons. So if it experienced a closed off person here in a kind of cold existence, it's likely you would have come back into this life to experience a open, warm, communicable kind of you know what I mean? Like, so just the opposite. So based off of that, try to connect to what speaks to you in regards to how you are with that kind of thing, okay? And keep making connections how you can with this protector and guardianship card, because this can also be coming up as a message for you to explain why you might be very, you might be possessive over people, or you might be protective over people. I guess it would be normal if you had children, you're protective over your children, but you might find that you're protective over your friends. Or it could actually be because this had a lot to do with secret keeping and information. It could be that you're actually quite protective over just information in general. Like, you might be someone that keeps a journal, and maybe this is random, but it would be something like, if you were younger, did you ever write your journal in a different language? Or have you ever made up a language? Or have you ever made up code? If you've ever been interested or made up kind of like code symbols or language or whatever, even if you were a child, doesn't matter. If you ever did that, it would be a direct connection to this kind of thing. So keep that kind of thing in mind, those little things. When we talk about protecting and guarding, it's not just people. It could be information. It could just be, and it could be your emotional state. It could be, you put walls up, that kind of thing. So make connections where you can. And when you make those connections, they're being made here just to kind of bring up and highlight certain parts of your life where it's time to look at and process and work through, and just kind of figure out if that's what you still want to be part of who you are and what you do and what your life is, or if it's time that you want to change that kind of thing. That's why certain things come up. So let's go to the first important day. So here we have the war card, and it could be war, like a real war, and it could also be a war inside of you. There's different ways this war card can be seen. And here the relationship is the family card, and here we have grateful. So I feel like what we're looking at is this interesting moment where everything that you've been taught and that you've learned in regards to your family, and like being loyal to your family and keeping their secrets and being there for them, we have an interesting day where I feel like that comes into play for you, where you never before had to be the one where your family had to be loyal for you and they had to keep secrets for you. It was always the other way, where you were always giving. And this day is kind of a very big day. It's an important day for you because this is the first time, it feels, where you're witnessing everything your family taught you about that. Now your family's doing. And it does feel like you're an only child, quite frankly. It feels like we're just dealing with a mother, father, only child kind of thing. But it feels like on this day, your parents, they step up to the plate and they keep mum about something about you. And I'm trying to figure out what it is. And if it doesn't come, it means it's not important to know this specific detail. But the scenario is something unexpected. It's this scenario where you never you never saw it coming because all along you've just been trained basically that they would need you to be a certain way, when on this day they showed you that they were this way for you. So they protected you about something. What it feels like is you trespassed somewhere, or you saw something, or were somewhere you weren't supposed to be, that kind of thing, that could get you in trouble. Kind of equal to today if you wandered onto federal land and they were testing something out that civilians shouldn't see, but then the security guard catches you and then you have to be questioned. It was like, that's what it feels like we're going through here, kind of, except because of your parents' reputation, your family's reputation, who they are, and because of this family loyalty pact that's made here, you don't have to go through the questioning or have the potential of being in trouble, or being people being suspicious of you, or you being a suspect, if that makes sense. So this day we're seeing the family loyalty play for you. So this feels like it's a message for you coming through to make sure that you are being treated the same way that you treat people. Make sure that the people you are calling your loved ones are the ones that are treating you the same way. Basically, make sure your loved ones are being called your loved ones because of how they treat you and who they are, versus just because that's their label, right? Because we get so stuck in a rut with people, like we've known people 20 years and so we call them friend, even though, but after 20 years is like you not only never talk to them, but maybe they're actually kind of like rude, or they're not so nice to you, or they forget to send you a Christmas card when you send them, you know what I mean, like that kind of thing, or whatever it is. It's a message of making sure you are going through your relationships, and that every relationship you have, look at the label that you've given it and make sure it's that label for a reason. If this is your best friend, make sure they're your best friend because of a reason, not just because you've known them forever. You know, make sure that they are your best friend because they treat you so well that there's, you know what I mean, like that kind of thing. They treat you well and you think of them as family and they think of you as their best friend. Like, don't think of someone as a best friend who wouldn't think of you as a best friend. Why would you do that? You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. So I feel like there's a message coming through just to make sure that you are looking at all of your relationships and making sure that everybody is contributing in a way that makes you feel like there is a connection there, that they are that label you've given them because they behave that way, whether it's a loved one or a friend or a best friend, or, there are people you would call your mother, even though that person might not be your mother, but you would consider them your mother because of the motherly energy and attention and time and love that they give you. Right? So just basically make sure that everyone is treating you how you're treating them, or make sure that the relationships in your life are authentic. Make sure that you're not just, basically make sure that if there are people in your life who make you feel kind of down or whatever, you don't have to continue to give them a label of loved one, best friend. You know what I mean? Be real is what this is saying. Like, be real with yourself. Because here on this day, they're showing you like that they are authentic. Like, they are who they say they are, and they are who they teach you to be as well. They're walking their talk. Make sure all your friends and your loved ones walk their talk. If they say they love you, make sure that they treat you with love and they're not treating you poorly or making you feel bad or embarrassed or, that kind of thing. And by doing that, you're making sure that you're taking care of yourself. Okay, and this card of grateful is the feeling you felt when you saw your family here step up to the plate and walk their talk. And that's the feeling that we want to have gratitude in our lives every day. So how do we make that happen? Well, we make sure that we find it in every moment that we can, as much as we can. So how can you do that with people? Well, make sure you surround yourself with the kind of people that you are grateful to have in your life. It's really that simple. The people you won't be grateful for in your life, I mean, I guess everybody has a purpose and can teach you a lesson that you can be grateful for, but the ones that don't make you feel too good, re-examine those relationships and see if they're worth keeping around. You know what I mean? So keep that in mind, and keep making connections here where you can. I want to see what the War card is. There's more to the War card. There's more about people. There's something, again, another message about people being there for you at the right time. The right people will be there for you at the right time, but also that message that if someone can't be there for whatever reason, like a real reason, don't, what's the word? Like, don't just make up your mind about them that they're not your friend. Like, make sure you are being fair when you are viewing, when you're taking this overview of everyone. Just make sure you're being fair and you're seeing where people are coming from, if that makes sense. Like a big picture. You want to make sure you're seeing the big picture of everything, especially when it comes to your relationships. And also that little tiny nugget of a message of making sure that you are like looking for gratitude as much as you can, because you want to have the vibration of gratitude in your daily life as much as you can, because that will raise your vibration. So keep that in mind. The next important day here, keep making connections too where you can, but here's the next important day. This is the Death card. So we're looking at someone's death, and this is the soul group. So we're looking at a soul group that's involved with the Death card, and here's the feeling of content. So I'm trying to see what day we're doing here. What are we doing? I feel like we've moved forward, like, much further. And I'm just trying to see what's happening here. Because I feel like there is something about your father here in this life. And I feel like there's somebody, so if there's someone in your life today where you feel like they push you a little, like they push you, but they do it because they say, oh, I want to see you meet your potential kind of thing. I feel like this father figure is still in your, like, I feel like your father figure is part of your soul group, and you guys travel around a lot together. And I feel like this is the person in your life or lives that would be the one to push you outside your comfort zone, or push you forward, or push you towards doing something that you might be uncomfortable with. But overall, you see that they're doing it for your betterment. So if there's someone, it doesn't have to be your father or a family member in your current life. It can be a best friend, someone who means something to you in your life, a partner, whoever it is. But it could be the same soul coming back as that person who pushes you towards meeting your potential, even though it's hard, and who wants to see the best for you. It doesn't mean that you guys would get along excellently either. You could, but it could also mean that you guys might butt heads sometimes too, even though you might both come together a lot. So if there's someone in your life like that, I feel like that would be this person. And I feel like later on there is the Death. I feel like the Death is your father, part of your soul group. And the Content card, I feel like this is the end of his life. It's not... the Content card feels like it's a dual content, I guess what I'm saying. So it feels like it's the end of his life. Like, let's say he's just really old, you expect him to die, and it's this time to pass. I feel like your mother has already passed by this time. You're grown up. I feel like you have your own family at this point. And the Content card comes in because I feel like there is, on this day, it's almost maybe like the day of his death or the day around his death, where you both feel content based on the relationship that you've had, like, but you both get to feel each other's content with each other, which is different. So it's not you feeling content with the relationship you guys have had over your life. It's you finally feeling and understanding fully that he is content with what you've done with your life. And he feels that you are content with the impact that he has had on your life. You see, that's what I'm trying to say. So on this day, basically what we're getting is this beautiful dualistic like perspective where each of you are seeing from a different point of view for the first time in your life, his being the end of his life, which is really interesting and unique, and yours being at the beginning of approaching being the next generation, because once his generation is gone, you're the next generation. So there's this like cycle that's happening here that's really interesting, and it's bittersweet, but it's lovely. And you shift your perspective on this day. And I feel like this is just coming through as a message for you not to take for granted those moments in life where you can literally tell when you are shifting in your consciousness, in your perspective, in your body, in spirituality, wherever you are in your life. If you can feel that shift happening, this would be a message for you to fully immerse yourself in trying to feel out and understand that shift in your soul, that shift that's happening in your life. Like, don't let those moments just float by or pass by. Acknowledge them is what it is. And I feel like the acknowledgement of those moments will kind of, there's this feeling of like making the lesson permanent in your soul memory. Like when you acknowledge these huge, they're huge, but they're also subtle. It's a kind of a weird thing. So again, like this bittersweet moment, it's not something anyone can really articulate, I guess, unless we're reading cards here, but it's not something you can really articulate if you're going through it in the moment. You don't really know what's happening, you just feel it, and you can, like, you and him can see it in each other's eyes and understand it without having a verbal language. It's those moments, the ones that you can't verbalize, but you can only feel in your core, and sometimes you're lucky enough to have those moments with other souls or other people around you. And you could share in that kind of amazing phenomena. But this would be a message that even if there isn't someone there to kind of witness that moment with you, make sure that you are acknowledging the moments and witnessing them yourself, and also kind of giving them their respect, if that makes sense. Like giving the respect to that moment. And again, the more you acknowledge these moments and pay respect to them in that way, kind of acknowledging them for these incredible shifts in your soul and your perspective, the more you're going to grow. Like big time. You're going to just grow in leaps and bounds, and it's also going to become more of a part of who you are and part of your soul. It's again, when people stop, for anyone, if you stop taking little moments for granted, I'm not saying you do take them for granted, but it's a message to make sure that you are paying attention and not taking them for granted, because it's easy to take them for granted because there's so much going on that we just let them pass by and we don't pay any mind to them. But this would be something like, make sure, if you have a moment, acknowledge it and write about it, like in your journal or something. Like make sure you note it down, that, hey, this was a special day because for the first time I realized whatever, So keep that in mind and keep making connections where you can when it comes to this. This card right here, the death card, also might mean that you have a good relationship with death. You're able to handle it easily, whether it's a loved one or a friend. You understand the cycle of life. You might be someone that really gets that death is only the beginning of the next phase of life, that death doesn't mean gone forever. And that's usually what it means when it's this kind of death, because there's a lot of peace between you and your father when it's his time. So that peace with his death might carry through into your other lives about how you feel about death. So keep that in mind and keep making connections where you can. The death card here, though, for you is a murder card, or in other words, it means that the death was intentional. So what it feels like, though, it doesn't feel like someone was like, I'm going to murder this person. It feels like the death was intentional, but it wasn't intended for you. So it feels like something was intentionally done, and you got in the way, or you got in the midst of the intentional act, and you were killed because of it, even though you were not the intended victim. Now, that's all they're giving me for this, so it's probably not important that you know how you actually died. But this would be coming up for you just as a message for you to remember that not everything is intended as you think it is. Like a message of make sure that you have all sides of a story. Make sure that you don't just assume something because you want to think that, or you feel that's right. Like, it's a message of making sure you go and ask about it. Make sure you make sure, basically, is what it is. Don't assume things. Make sure that you have all of the facts before you jump to conclusions. That's what I feel like is coming through for you. But keep making connections where you can. And then here is the lesson card. And this lesson is self-love. And it's a really great lesson because you had to learn self-love in a hard way because your whole life seemed to revolve around the family. So there's this whole thing about living for other people. So you had to find balance in this concept of growing up with this family where essentially you were taught that you were living for your family, and then you had to find somewhere in there the balance for living for yourself as well. And I feel like this balance was eventually found, and I feel like this balance is the thing, the self-love you found in this life actually is the thing that allowed you to move forward and create your own family. It almost felt like you didn't want to create a family the way that you were taught a family exists here. You wanted to wait because it didn't feel right. And then when you finally were able to find the balance of self-love versus living for others, then you were able to move forward with creating a family and being happy. So how you might make connections where you can with that already, but how you can be connecting with that is, are you someone that's looking for a balance, or are you always looking for everything to be perfect before you move on to something? Are you someone that almost like using it as an excuse like, oh, this isn't, this isn't perfect, or maybe when this is done, then I'll do this, like that kind of thing. Like, it would be a message of making sure you're not stalling or you're not holding back or holding yourself back in the moment just because you feel like everything isn't perfect. Like this person it's a good thing they found the balance, but they held off creating a family because of it. And so it felt like years, like there's a lot of work they felt like had to be done before they would even think about moving forward with a family. And in that way, she allowed her family to hold her back by having that kind of power over her, that would make her stall and try to figure out, like, I'm not happy, I need to find balance. So just make sure that in your current life that you're not allowing yourself to hold yourself back. And one way to do that is to make sure that you are giving yourself happiness in a certain way, like making sure that your love bucket's filled, making sure that your happiness bucket is filled, making sure, like, if you want to take a class, take a class. If you want to learn a hobby, learn a hobby. If you want to, basically, like, don't wait. Don't hold back until you feel like things are perfect and then you can move forward. Like, it's that saying, like, no time is, there's no time like the present. Like, really, truly, that's what I feel like is coming through. And when you move forward doing things that you want to do for your own happiness sake, then you're going to, that balance you're looking for is going to come forward easier and quicker. So it's kind of counterintuitive. So instead, we think, oh, okay, I'm just going to wait until I can check off the list and then move forward. That seems like it's correct, but in this case, it feels more like go and do what you want to do, and you will get that checklist checked off as you go and do what you want to do, and it will get checked off easier, quicker, and you'll do it in with a happier heart if you move forward with the other things you want to do in the meantime rather than hold yourself back, if that makes sense. So if you connect, great. If not, keep making connections however you can with this card of self-love, okay? And usually, if anything you get from self-love, it's to make sure you're showing yourself self-love. Make sure you're doing that above other people, because when you show yourself self-love first, then you'll be happier to spread the love around more. You won't be resentful, you'll be happy to do that. So keep that in mind, keep making connections. There is your past life. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you were able to make some connections, and thanks for letting me read you.